Hey guys, this is Camfrey15 back at it with another video for you guys. And I'm here with a video to talk fairy tale arcs. Now, obviously you have seen, if you've seen on my channel and my playlist, that I do have many fairy tale arc review videos up on YouTube. But to be honest, like at the time when I had previously done my One Piece arc reviews, before the most recent ones came out. Um, I'm here to do arc reviews about Fairy Tail, essentially speaking on the fact of, well, guess what? I didn't like how those videos were done. And I didn't like the fact that I wasn't really detailed in what I was saying. So I actually kind of want to redo those arc reviews, and when I do those arc reviews, I'm going to eventually delete those old videos and these will be the new arc reviews. But I know I covered all the way up until the Tartaros arc. Just had to make a video talking about the Tartaros arc. And honestly, right now I thought about it, I'm like, hey, I'm kind of rewatching Fairy Tail, so I might as well redo arc reviews. Because in my first Fairy Tail arc review I just covered all of the first four to five arcs in the series, which essentially covers season one. So I think this way I'm going to do it where it's more organized and more arc structured. So unlike my first video I did covering those arcs, I'm not going to combine the Eisenwald Arc, the Sub-Zero Leon Emperor Arc, or the what's his name? The Deliora arc, the Tower of Heaven arc, Battle of Fairy Tail, all the other arcs that start the Fairy Tail series off. I'm not going to combine one video talking about each of those arcs. I'm going to go by each arcs. So essentially, this video is going to cover mostly the introduction, like the starting introduction to Fairy Tail and the Eisenwald Arc. The introduction covers the first few chapters in the manga where we're introduced to Natsu, Lucy, and Happy. And then obviously, the Eisenwald arc covers the part of the anime and the chapters. I haven't read the manga for Fairy Tail, the original series. Now I've read 100 Year Quest, but I'm watching the anime. So yeah. Anyways. Let's speak about it. Fairy Tail. Fairy Tail. Man, is this not one of the most controversial animes ever known to people who get into the anime world? Because my God, the thing with Fairy Tail is this: either you love Fairy Tail or either you massively hate Fairy Tail. And that's essentially two sides of the coin. I don't know if there's like a in-between, party where, oh, I love some things from Fairy Tail, but I also hate some things from Fairy Tail. I think there is a party out there like that, but it's very few where there's like in the middle people where they have, opinions of like, yeah, it was good, but it's also bad too. But in this genre, excuse me, but for this anime, for this series, created by Hiro Mashima after his first project, which was Rave Master, Come to the Fold Fairy Tail, which obviously I would say probably next to his third creation, which is Eden Zero, which I will be covering on the channel when the anime finally comes out to Netflix here in the States. This was the biggest project Hiro Mashima has done, and we know it. My God, it's still continuing to this day with 100 Year Quest. Well, again, like I said, Fairy Tail is very controversial. People hate it for various reasons because, hey, the friendship gimmick, and they say that's overblown many, many times. Although in some cases, yes, they are right. Sometimes the friendship angle can get a little bit stale and kind of get a little bit BS. But let's be honest. When is it that not every other anime uses that trope where I'm fighting for my friends and fighting for my friends gives me strength? Almost every anime has it at one point, but you have people say, well, they overblow it in Fairy Tail when you know, you can look at it for some other series that they use that logic as well, and stuff like that. Now, you'll hear me time and time again in my arc reviews say I don't really mind this gimmick because sometimes they actually make a reference and they make a point to show, oh, how a character has grown in their strength. For example, even though I'm skipping ahead, the Tower of Heaven arc, which is very controversial in the aspect of how Natsu defeated Jalal. When we get to that arc, I'll speak about that. But that's one of the very controversial battles there. So yeah, listen, I'm not I don't harp on the friendship angle as much as other people do. And mostly I'm in the camp of people who I think Fairy Tail is honestly good. Honestly, I think it's good. Honestly, I think Fairy Tail, in the grand scheme of things, is a very underrated series that a lot of people just hate because it's the one anime people say, oh, yeah, the one anime you don't want to get into, it's Fairy Tail. It sucks, trust me. The story angles are horrible, they're trash, they're bad, when in reality, Fairy Tail honestly has some of the best arcs in the series. Yes, are there some arcs where I get onto later on that I do not like where the story is and stuff like that? Yes, there's going to be a few arcs here and there in this journey of my arc reviews that I will say, hey, I didn't like this arc because this. To be a proponent, since I'm mostly covering the anime stuff, I'm going to be talking about the two filler arcs. And the two filler arcs, I didn't like either one of those filler arcs one bit. There's some things in the final arc of the main original series that I do not like. I still think the final arc of Fairy Tail is decent. There's just some things that kind of irk me and tip me off, where it's like, I like it, but at the same time, I don't like it. There's a few other arcs up in here. No, but other than that, most of the other arcs that come out liking the series. But other than that, yeah, Fairy Tail is very controversial. And listen, I'm probably one of the few people on YouTube making videos about Fairy Tail that, hey, I'm completely positive about it, because you go on YouTube, there's only like 2 videos I've watched on YouTube that were very in a positivity way of saying, you know, Fairy Tail's actually pretty good and people don't really know what they're talking about. They just say that because, hey, it's the trend. It's like if you see CW's Batwoman. I always said it on those videos. People just hate on Batwoman because that's the show to hate, because guess what? They're not getting Batman. That's why they hate Batwoman. And they make some references about women's and stuff like that, and they're very feminist. Listen, the same thing is kind of here. Fairy Tail is a show, a series, that gets kind of somewhat undeserved hate when, guess what? Most people aren't looking too deep into the lines of things, or they just hate things because, hey, they hate it. But, hey, again, I'm not going to judge you. If you don't like Fairy Tail, you don't like Fairy Tail, and I'll respect your opinion. I'm just of the proponent. Don't tell other people who are getting into anime or who haven't never seen Fairy Tail. And they're saying, hey, I want to check out this Fairy Tail show. And you tell somebody, don't watch that. It's a waste of your time and things. I think everybody should watch an anime that they haven't watched before, and if they're intrigued, and even if it's an anime there's not a lot of fan favorites for, I say give it a chance, because guess what? That one person can be like, you know what? Actually, I like this. I think it's pretty good. But let's get into it. So I don't know, really, I guess you could call the first arc the intro to Fairy Tail arc. So it's not, I don't know, but I'd call it the intro to Fairy Tail. And essentially, this is where we start our story off with a young girl, teenage girl named Lucy. Now, I'll speak about her last name when we get to the Phantom Lord arc. But we're introduced to this girl named Lucy, who is an aspiring celestial wizard who wants to join a guild, preferably Fairy Tail, because, hey, when she ran away from home, she wanted to do her own thing and stuff like that. Again, I'll speak more into the reasons when we get to the Phantom Lord arc, why she ran away from home. But we see her as a pretty chippy, carefree girl who does have a hothead type of personality to her, and is honestly one of the first girls that we see in Hiro Majima's fairy tale that 9 out of 10 times gets over sexualized a lot. And just as Lucy, oh, my bad. Hold on for a quick second, guys. Okay, back with that quick little cut there. Sorry, my throat's kind of acting up, so I made sure to get my water and some juice and yeah. Anyways, as I was saying about Lucy, just as in just like in One Piece, Nami is kind of the main poster girl for some of the over sexualization routes and fan servicey stuff. Even though there's other fairy tale girls, even the mostly all the fairy tale women that are introduced in this series get these fan servicey scenes at some point. Lucy is mostly the poster girl for that. So essentially, she's like One Piece's Nami, where 9 out of 10 times she's a character that kind of gets most of the fan servicey angles with character designs, how I guess you could say they show her from time to time. Hell, in the movie, they actually show her butt, literally when she's nude in the movie, and I believe that's from fairy tale the movie Phoenix Priestess. But the thing there is the fact that again, okay, very interesting to see here, but yeah, Lucy essentially is that fan servicey character. Honestly, I don't mind. Lucy definitely for me is a fan favorite character. I do like Lucy, especially the growth she has over time. And really, when this, like, mostly, even though this is her introduction arc and she shines the most in the Phantom Lore arc, the first whole season, the first 4 to 5 arcs of this series really does give you that Lucy perspective of how much fairy tale as a guild means to her and stuff like that. So we'll go on as the arcs progress and my thoughts on what she's thinking. But yeah, so essentially she wants to mostly join a guild, and the one important guild she wants to join very much is the guild named Fairy Tale, which is one of the best, if not one of the most popular, well-known guilds in the land of Fiore, or in the country of Fiore. So as she's walking, she overhears this person named Salamander, which is one of Fairy Tale's members, and she's never met this person named Salamander. Lo and behold, we find out it's just some dude who is pretending to be who we later see is Natsu Dragneel. And he almost, I guess you can say gets Lucy under his control by using his magic. So in this anime, the kind of power stuff is magic here, and things like that, which is essentially Fairy Tale as a fantasy-like world, which honestly, I'm cool with that. So yeah, and now the reason why Lucy breaks free of his control is because that's when we get introduced to our characters, Natsu Dragneel and Happy the Cat. And essentially because he's looking for someone, and he's thinking it's his dragon parent named Igneel. But eventually when he finds out it's somebody else, he's like, oh, you're not the person I was looking for. So because of it, that makes him and Lucy finally meet and everything. And they just have a nice talk saying how Lucy's telling him like she wants to be in a guild more than anything and stuff like that. And obviously Natsu's like, oh, that sounds cool and stuff like that. But the one thing Lucy fails to tell Natsu is like the guild she wants to be in is Fairy Tale. Because of it, by the time it's, she dips and leaves because she's like, look, I'm just gonna go. Hopefully you guys enjoy your food and everything and stuff like that. Now, Natsu, again, somewhat to Lucy, he's kind of a hothead. He's kind of your typical, MC protagonist of a series, character that loves to eat a lot, loves to fight a lot. But the one thing we see Natsu over and over and over and over again in this series, has the one thing that is about his character, and that's friendship and how, guilds treat their guild mates as friends. And that's the one thing that we see with Natsu fuels him over and over again in each reoccurring arc when it comes to other guilds he goes up against, when it comes to that disrespecting what he would consider your friends, and stuff like that. We'll see it when we get a little bit, when we talk about in the Eisenwald arc, a bit, but that's Natsu's whole premise. Happy, he's kind of your comedic relief character where he likes to have fun and kind of loves to tease the characters. I love Happy because he's funny. Now, I watched the English dub of Fairy Tail, not the subbed, mostly because I prefer watching English dubs. But I think Jeremy Lay, Todd Habercorn, and Tia Ballard as their individual characters kill it in their roles. Obviously, those are probably the biggest roles each of those characters have in their moves, in their arsenal of characters they voiced act. Jeremy Lay, if you ever bring up Jeremy Lay to me and like, oh, Jeremy Lay, oh, I would only identify her as Lucy. Todd Habercorn, he's voiced a lot of good characters, like even ReZero's Sloth, Betelgeuse, but mostly, yes, I can identify him as, oh yeah, he played Betelgeuse and everything, but I mostly identify Todd Habercorn as the voice actor that voice act Natsu because, hey, that would be his most important role. And then Tia Ballard, she's had many of roles, but definitely one of her top roles is definitely the voice actor of being the voice actor of Happy. But yeah, so what happens next up is Lucy runs into that same dude again, and he promised her, is like, oh, don't worry, I can take you, like, I'm really am in Fairy Tail. So she falls for the lie again and stuff like that. And she ends up going on a boat, but we find out this boat is with a bunch of other girls that end up going to be, sold off as slaves. And it's looking like, oh, guess what? Lucy walked herself into a whole problem. And everything, and she can't fight back using her celestial with her spirits because, hey, they took that out of her hands. So that, but lo and behold, that's when Natsu comes in. Even though we see that he has motion sickness on moving vehicles, which is the thing for his stuff, we get introduced to him and how he fights and what type of magic he has, and essentially, Happy tells Lucy, yeah, the type of magic he has is fire dragon slaying magic. Essentially, he was taught by a dragon, his magic, and essentially he can eat his own element, which his element is fire, and stuff like that. Now, we'll see reoccurring dragon slayers over time of this series, but he's the first dragon slayer we get introduced into the main series of Fairy Tail, and stuff like that. So after they defeat them, Natsu asks Lucy, hey, you want to come to Fairy Tail? And obviously Lucy's like, yeah, sure. So that's when they get to Fairy Tail. We get introduced to a lot of the main cast characters in the guild, like Kana Albarona, Elfman, and Mara Jane Strauss. A few other characters, Makao, Wakaba. I can go through all the each and every characters and stuff like that. Now, we see our character now in the anime. I even think this is even the manga chapter 2 in the mangas. We see a few little short adventures with Natsu and Lucy when it pertains to dealing with, obviously, the guy who had the celestial spirit Virgo, and even Natsu finding Makao and stuff like that, and Lucy getting more understanding of how Natsu kind of operates and stuff like that, as well as we get funny scenes over and over again in this series. Especially in the first couple of arcs in this series of Natsu and other Fairy Tail members, mostly Urza or Gray, chilling in freaking Lucy's room for the fun of it because, hey, Why not? Even though we know technically that's going to be, I guess, Natsu's future home because, hey, you ship the two characters together anyway. So, yeah, that good old Nalu shipping. Um, but after those incidents have occurred, that's when we get into the next arc that we're going to mostly talk about, which is kind of the big arc in this video, is the Eisenwald Arc. So in the Eisenwald Arc, this is when we get introduced to, obviously, Urza Scarlet for the first time and Gray Fullbuster as really, well, now we saw Gray earlier on in the earlier episodes, but this is when he starts his really main character debut. And we hear about Urza. Again, Urza and Gray, very funny in their own rights and everything. I'll mostly talk about their individual characteristics and what builds and makes their characters the most when we get to their representative arcs, which I think is a good way to introduce. But here, I like the way they introduce the characters because, hey, these characters are great in their own way. Now, Urza, we know from Natsu and Gray that Urza is one of the best, if not one of the strongest guildmates in the guild of Fairy Tail and stuff like that. And I also forgot to mention about Master Makarov. So in the Fairy Tail world, you have a guild, and essentially how the guilds operate is there's a guild there with a bunch of people that wear the guild's insignia or their mark on whatever part of their body they have, and they're usually led by a guild master, which 9 out of 10 times is probably the strongest person in their guild. And essentially, people in their guild are people in a guild, just like any other isekai or fantasy world of adventure guilds. They do these requests to earn money to essentially provide for themselves and stuff like that. So yeah, but where we meet Urza, so one, obviously she's one of the three at this point, one of the three strongest fairy tale wizards in the guild as of that arc, as of the Eisenwald. My God, I can't speak today. But Eisenwald arc, and also we know that she's the strongest female in Fairy Tail. Now, at one point, it was Mira Jane who was they were kind of head to head, but it was mostly Mira Jane getting the edge on Urza there. But because of a tragic incident that happened in Mira Jane's past, which we'll bring up later, is the fact that, hey, she essentially just stopped doing jobs and requests, and she essentially, you could say, retired from doing guild work, and she kind of just chillaxes in the guild. But anyways, that's when we get introduced to Urza Scarlet. That's her full name. She's a person that uses requip magic, which essentially is things that are in a different space. She can put herself, call those items out of that undisclosed area of space and be able to use that in her fights. Like, she has many different armors we see throughout the series, how she equips them on and off and stuff like that. And it's a way to increase her power. Now, again, like I said, I watched the English dub, not the sub version. So if I don't say the sub voice actor, then my bad. But the English dub voice actor that plays Urza Scarlet is Colleen Clinkenbeard, who is obviously another well-known, in my circle of anime voice actors, essentially, is well-known enough out there because not only Urza is probably her biggest role, she voice acts, Luffy in the One Piece English dub, which you could say either one of those roles are the biggest roles she has. I would probably say Luffy edges her Urza role out a bit, mostly because it's Luffy. He's a main character. She also voice acts Momo Yaoyorozu from My Hero Academia. So she essentially is in some of the biggest animes, and mostly she voice acts and mostly Funimation dub. So Fairy Tail was picked up by Funimation. Here you go. And she's in it. I think Colleen Klinkenbeard does a really good job in her role as Urza. I like, just the care of the voice she has, and that goes with any characters she has. I've honestly am a big fan of hers and stuff like that, so I really do love her performances as characters she voice acts over time. Now, as I pull up Gray Fullbuster, I'm going to take another quick break, and I'll be back with Gray Fullbuster's English dub voice actor. Okay, back with the Gray Fullbuster English dub voice actor. And Gray Fullbuster, his English dub voice actor is Newton Pittman. Now, I'm not really familiar with his work, and I think he's kind of I think he's a voice actor that really isn't really out there. But I like his performance as Gray Fullbuster. He makes me laugh every damn time when he plays Gray, and I think he plays the role perfectly in any of just the way Gray's mannerisms is, especially when it's just for comedic characters or even serious stuff. But Gray, he's kind of a character we see that I guess you could see the person the boy, the cool guy that likes to keep to himself and, is just, a character that just is really that. And, over time, his character actually does grow and develop over time. Especially when we get to, obviously, the Galuna Island Arc. That arc. We'll see his character start to come out more and grow. But yeah, it's a character that kind of keeps himself, and he's still a pretty mysterious character up to this point until we get more into his backstory. But essentially, the one thing we find out between Gray is he has a butting heads rivalry with Natsu. And essentially, it's just these two characters that just like to butt heads and stuff like that. Now, you can consider them, Gray and Natsu, as rivals, even though technically there's another pair of characters with character with Natsu that you can consider more of a rival. But in the grand scheme of thing, I would say that, Natsu and Gray are like rivals. But I say they get rivals for the fun of it. They're two characters that butt heads because they have disagreements of saying like, "Oh, I'm better than you." No, I'm better than you, and stuff like that. But the person that mostly breaks them up all the time and instructs fear into their hearts is Urza Scarlet with her serious attitude and stuff like that. Which again, the one thing I like about Urza is how quickly she can have this comedic side to herself where she's nonchalant, doing mostly nothing. And all of a sudden you piss her off, you probably made the worst mistake of your life because she will kill you because of it. But we see in this arc, she tells Natsu and Gray to accompany her because she's been getting word about the Eisenwald, guild, which is a dark guild that plans to attack the guild masters at this guild masters convention, where all these guild masters just meet up at this one place, essentially. And they're going to use it by using this thing called lullaby, which is a flute that essentially just signifies death to an opponent on the flute being played, essentially. So Urza requests Natsu and Gray's help because they're two of the other strongest members in Fairy Tail. So what happens is that's the thing that happens. Eventually, we see Lucy and Happy accompany them. We get more introduced to the fact that Natsu's got motion sickness and stuff like that. And again, it's just funny business. But the thing is, after they're dropped off at the station, Natsu runs into the guy because of his motion sickness. He stays on the train, and he runs into a guy named Kageyama, which is one of Eisenwald's essentially little guild mates or guild members, and he's confronted by him. But eventually, well, lo and behold, Natsu just leaves, and because of it, when Urza finds out, she's pissed off. She's like, "You let him go," and stuff like that. Now, the main guild for the Eisenwald Guild, or the main leader of this faction, is Aragorn, who has wind magic. And I also forgot to mention about Gray. Gray has ice maker magic. Essentially, with the element of ice, he can make magic out of essentially things like he has ice make hammer, which literally is him creating a hammer out of ice and stuff like that. It's pretty effective magic, and honestly, again, it's one of my favorite magics used by a character. But going back to Aragorn, he uses wind magic. So what happens is when Urza and the gang catch up to him, essentially Aragorn leaves. He's like, I'm gonna be out to go destroy the master, kill your masters and stuff like that. Because hey, we hate the guild masters because they're treating us unfairly and stuff like that. So that's what they're going to do. So Aragorn leaves and essentially leaves his henchmen back in return to be like, don't let them escape or stuff like that. But because of them being chased down and everything, you have each character go their own separate ways to stop one of Aragorn's little minions while Aragorn goes off. The only catch is Aragorn, as characters are trying to leave, is we find out that Aragorn leaves behind essentially a magic wall called the Wind Wall, which is essentially kind of a tornado gust of wind that is forming around this station that prevents Urza, Gray, Lucy, and Natsu from leaving. And if you try to force your way out of it, you're going to get massively hurt because of it and stuff like that. So the thing is, they're trying to find a way to get up out of there. So they go up to the minions and say, how do you break the spell and everything? Now, eventually gets to the point where Kageyama's essentially cornered, and before Kageyama's able to tell them how you're able to get out of the wind wall and stuff like that, or the main reason why, obviously they're trying to attack the guild masters, Kageyama gets stabbed. And this is when we get kind of the first introduction to how Natsu feels about their opponents attacking, and what Natsu says his own guildmates / his friends. We see this is the start to where, and even Lucy witnesses this, where she sees Natsu, the fact that Natsu does not like it when other guildmates are attacked by the same people within their guild, because he's like, how can you call yourselves friends if you're attacking one another? And it's a really, complex thing. And that's kind of fuels Natsu's, thing of the fact that, hey, my friends make me who I am today. And if it wasn't for them, I'd probably be somewhere else. And we see, again, like I said earlier, time in, time out, again and again and again, that Natsu hates it when other people attack their own, when other, allies attack their own, and he hates that. And honestly, I like that out of Natsu, because he's the type of protagonist that, in any shonen show, that doesn't like it where their friends get hurt. That's one of the things we see with Luffy all the time. Luffy, when he goes against other pirate crews and he sees, hey, these pirate crews going to just fighting each other, or the main villain of a crew attacks somebody on their crew, we see Luffy get really pissed off because he's like, that's your crewmate. He's your friend. Shouldn't you care? Like, that's your nakama. And obviously you'd have the evil person like, friend, get the hell out of here. They ain't my friends. They just work for me. And they do as they're told, and stuff like that. So the similar kind of cases here for Natsu and everything. Now, the way that the others escape the wind wall is the fact that from the one arc, which is the little mini arc called the Daybreak arc, dealing with the one rich guy, and then that's when we get introduced to Virgo. Happy manages to tell Lucy, like, hey, you have Virgo, Key of the Maiden. And essentially, that's when Lucy brings Virgo out. And essentially, Virgo creates a hole to get under the wind wall and get up out of there. So that's what they go after Aragorn. So eventually they catch up to Aragorn thanks to Natsu doing that, and Natsu goes up against Aragorn in a pretty interesting fight and stuff like that. And it's essentially Natsu's fire versus Aragorn's wind. But it comes to the point where Natsu learns a lesson from, I believe it was Makarov, who told him, if you can do this technique in the way of doing your flames won't get blown out and can't get blown out by anything. Essentially, one, it's how concentrating really hardly, because we see Natsu fall down into this, I guess, pit of nothingness. And because of remembering the teaching Makarov told him, he's able to make, essentially, I guess you can say, living like fire to grab back onto the ledge and be able to make it to where his fire doesn't get extinguished by Aragorn. And even though Aragorn was in a wind wall in his body was covered by a wind wall, Natsu manages to beat Aragorn and finishes him off and stuff like that. So the thing is, eventually, Urza and the others go to the guild location to tell, hey, master, this is what was going to happen. But the thing is, Kageyama's with them. And Kageyama has the lullaby flute. And Kageyama tries to use the flute on the masters. But the thing here is the fact that Master Makarov's watching, and essentially Kageyama can't bring himself to play the flute. And, you know, Master Makarov was like, listen, I don't know why your intentions were doing this, but you have to realize that all guilds are good for their own reasons. They're not all bad and stuff like that, which was a very interesting talk, and we get to see a little bit more into Master Makarov. He's kind of like Master Roshi. He gives young teaching. Now, he isn't much of a pervert like Roshi is, but he gives very wise teachings. And the one thing I do like about Master Makarov is he considers the people within Fairy Tail as his children, people as he raises up, because he does teach them, because that's what kind of guild masters are. They're kind of like teachers to obviously the other people a part of the guild, that teach them the lessons of what's right and what's wrong. And usually, and most people, whatever guild you're in, you follow your guild master. So that's why you have evil guilds following their own guild's master, even though in some cases they know what they're doing is not right. They follow it because, hey, they're usually not a time. They're the one select number of people that give me the chance or took a chance on me and stuff like that. And we'll see that as time progresses and stuff like that. But because of Kageyama not playing the flute essentially, well, let's be honest, is alive on its own, and it turns into one of the demons. I think they said one of the demons from the book of Zareth, which I won't get into details with who Zareth is, but all we know is Zareth is a very ancient wizard at the start of the series who has very evil magic. So I won't bring up more about Zareth until we get to the Tower of Heaven arc. But we get this, like, I guess you could say, bark or tree-like looking creature. And that's when we get essentially the first name call of Fairy Tail's strongest team, which is really, but this before they kind of considered Lucy to be in it, but it was really Natsu, Gray, and Urza. And essentially what happens is the three of them collectively take down the demon, the lullaby demon creature, but at the only cost. And the one catchphrase with Fairy Tail is, yes, they do good work and everything, but if you get Fairy Tail involved, 9 out of 10 times they're going to destroy things. And what happened is they destroyed the Guild Masters Conference Hall, and everybody got upset at them. And that's kind of how the arc ends. And yeah, and that's kind of it. Now, I know in the anime there's a few filler episodes here and there. I do request the Fairy Tail anime fillers are pretty good. And I honestly enjoy each of the Fairy Tail fillers, not the filler arcs, but the individual like 1 to 2 episode fillers I enjoy. Because hey, they're funny. But yeah. I like the introduction arc to Fairy Tail, as well as I also like the Aragorn arc. I think these two arcs, you know, are great introduction arcs to all of them. Really, what you see is the main cast of characters. There is more main cast members that show up later, but as a way to be introduced to the series, these are really two good arcs and stuff like that. And going forward, it only gets better with the touching moments and the emotional moments that goes on in Fairy Tail. But yeah, other than that, I'm gonna get out of here. If you guys like the video, leave a like. Put in the comment section your thoughts on the intro to Fairy Tail arc and the Aragorn arc, or the Eisenwald arc. And I guess your thoughts on Fairy Tail. Do you like Fairy Tail or do you hate Fairy Tail? And how did you get introduced to Fairy Tail? And stuff like that. But other than that, hit that subscribe button. You want to get more Fairy Tail arc reviews. The next arc we're going to be talking about on my Fairy Tail arc reviews is the Galuna Island arc, or the Deli Aura arc, or the Leon Sub-Zero Emperor arc, or mostly, which, whatever. I don't know what you call it. I'm gonna probably call it the Galuna Island arc, probably the Deli Aura arc. Probably Galuna Island is better tuned, but this is the arc as a sneak peek is when Natsu, Lucy, and Happy secretly take an S-class, quest that they weren't supposed to do, and because of it, it forces Gray and Urza to go after them. But because Gray's there, Gray runs into some secret stuff from his past that really focuses on Gray. Next arc really is the Gray character development arc. So next time we'll be talking about Gray's arc that gives him the most character development to get more understanding, more backstory to him. But other than that, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Till then, guys, I'll see you guys in the next Fairy Tail arc review, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.